And then another issue that's been in the newspapers recently, it comes back every few years, but especially in the last little while, is how indebted are we? So if you look at it, the facts speak for themselves. You know, personal debt used to be 85% of national income back in 1990, and now it's 176%, so it's more than doubled. So we're spending our way silly, at least at first blush. And this is considered to be a serious impediment on the future economic growth of Canada. So the questions are this. My first question to you is this. If you had to borrow money for anything, whether it was an investment or personal consumption, where is the cheapest place for you to get that loan? How would you get it? What's the easiest or the cheapest way for you to get that loan? Lowest interest rate that you would pay? Well, I'm charging my kids 12%, but okay, besides parents, okay, how about, can we assume the house, the mortgage on the house? Okay, so lowest form of debt is a house. Now, we went back to Stats Canada and said, okay, how much of the new mortgage debt, because most of this new debt is mortgage debt, has been used to acquire assets, start a business, versus for personal consumption? And what do you think they said when we asked them that question? They have no idea. And I said, oh, okay, well, wouldn't that be sort of important? And they said, well, we can't really tell you that, but we can tell you this. We'll give you this graph, which says how much of your income is being used to support that debt. In terms of principal and interest, amortizing the debt, it has gone up from 12 to 15%, but it hasn't gone up by, let's say, 100% over the last roughly 25 years. But the interest payments on that debt have actually dropped by 35%. So people today spend 35% less on interest on their debt than they did in 1990 with half the debt that they had on them. But even more interesting is this. This is something also from Stats Canada, which is the net worth of Canadians. And as of 2014 through 2018, Canadians had gross assets, this is individual Canadians, of $11 trillion to $13 trillion. That was the growth over the 5-year period of time. And they also measure their liabilities. This is the thing that all the articles are about. It's gone from 1.8 trillion to 2.24 trillion. So the difference between the two is your net worth, which, as you can see, is going up. In fact, if we look at the numbers in some detail, over 4 years, the assets have risen by $2 trillion, but the liabilities by $4 billion. Now, in most people's book, that would actually prove to be a pretty good decision in terms of how they use the money. So unless you actually figure out whether the money is being spent in just personal consumption, if it's being used to add and build wealth, that's a different story. And Canada has one of the lowest, relatively easiest places to borrow money on housing between home equity lines of credit and variable rate mortgages. So it's not particularly unusual that they're actually getting used. And last year, in fact, the only reason the ratio went up at all was because both house prices across the country and equity prices dropped in the same year.